Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is 3-Chord Dave and I'm a guitarist. Kinda. But we're not going to talk about guitars today. In fact, what we're actually going to talk about is supergroups. And if you've never heard of a supergroup or you don't know what a supergroup is, stay tuned. I'll fill you in and even give you some examples of some good fun ones to listen to. Now, if you don't mind, please hit the subscribe button if you have not already done so, and hit the like button so that more people can see that I make YouTube videos and they might watch them and subscribe also in the future. That would be cool. Alright, so what's a supergroup? Well, supergroup is essentially a band made up of members of other bands who are successful. In some cases it can be as little as one member from one band with others. We'll talk about that in a bit. Or it could be 4 or 5 individuals from 4 or 5 different bands that all come together and make this one big supergroup. Sometimes they work out really well and are, even more successful than the main bands. Sometimes they have cult followings. Sometimes they just don't work at all. So that's what a supergroup is. So let's talk about some supergroups and why maybe you could listen to them, maybe you haven't heard of them. First one I'm going to tell you about is Neurotic Outsiders. Now, this was a band set up basically for a one-off charity gig in the Viper Room in LA, and they just liked playing together and they hit it off and they decided to stick around, and they ended up having a like a house band arrangement in the Viper Room in LA. Now, it was a pretty stellar lineup. You had Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols, Duff McKagan and Matt Sorum, who were both either still in or had just left Guns N' Roses, and then John Taylor as well, who was from Duran Duran. So now, I mentioned Duran Duran and most people will be like, oh crap, it's not like what I listen to, or unless of course it is. But the music that the Neurotic Outsiders played was described as kind of a dark blend of punk and pre-grunge Guns N' Roses style hard rock. Now that's pretty much what it says on Spotify is their type of music. I would say it's a Green Day style punk mixed with kind of a Guns N' Roses sound. Of course, helped by the fact that Duff McKagan is playing guitar on a lot of songs and also doing the vocals. Steve Jones, of course, Sex Pistols guitarist, playing guitar in the band. So that was their gig. They decided to play this one-off gig. Of course, Duff McKagan and Steve Jones are very good friends. They put this band together and they played for a while. I think they had a record deal. As far as I'm aware, they only released one record, which is in 1996. It may have been self-titled, or it might have been called something else. 2 great songs that you could check out on Spotify. One's called Jerk. That was their biggest hit, or most radio played song back in the late 90s there. And they had a song which, look, a lot of people will not like it. It's called Dirty Ho, and it's pretty funny. But yeah, it's also, don't let your girlfriend listen to it. She'll be angry. But it's a good band. Check them out. Like, a lot of people will not know who the Neurotic Outsiders are. We're in quarantine. Discover new things. Neurotic Outsiders, why not? So you've got the dirty side of rock covered with the Neurotic Outsiders, but what about like a cool bluesy rock band that you have probably heard of, but maybe you haven't? If you're really into your rock and roll music, I think you've probably heard of Black Country Communion. Now, what you've got here is a blues rock band fronted pretty much by Joe Bonamassa, but you also have Jason Bonham, son, of course, of John Bonham from Led Zeppelin. You got Glenn Hughes, who was in Deep Purple, and then you've got Derek Sherinan. Yeah, he was in Dream Theater. Anyway, he's a keyboardist, in case you're curious. Pretty much they decided to pop this band together. Apparently Glenn Hughes wanted to put a band together to prove that he wasn't difficult to get on with and he could play well with others. And then the band got together, they played a few gigs, they released a couple of albums, and then they broke up. So don't know how well that worked out for you, Glenn, but good try. They did get back together a couple of years ago, released another album. And pretty much I think why they actually split up as a band was because Joe Bonamassa was having a lot more success as a solo artist and decided he'd just do his own thing and collaborate with whoever he wanted and stuff like that. And it went pretty well for him. So, you know, great stuff from Joe Bonamassa in the last 5-6 years, even more than that. And you know, but it's a really good band to check out. I think I like throwing them on Spotify if I'm working, if I'm writing something, if I'm just hanging out. A great song of theirs to get into is Song of Yesterday, which I just think it rocks. It's a really cool song, and it's got that usual Joe Bonamassa style to it, so it's really cool. And now we get to band number 3, which is Blind Faith. Now, if you know a lot about music in the 60s and 70s, you probably know Blind Faith. If you're a historian of Eric Clapton's career, you probably know a lot about Blind Faith. Probably a lot more than Eric Clapton does, because he doesn't remember a lot of it because he was on the drink and he wasn't handling it too well. So Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood got together. They were playing some jazzy, bluesy stuff. They were digging it. They were like, we should form a band. And they were like, yeah, let's do it. So they had Rick Gretsch as well, who was bassist for a UK band called Family. And he came along with them. They said, yeah, okay, what are we going to do? So Ginger Baker came by one day as they were kind of jamming. And Steve Winwood really wanted Ginger Baker to join the band. Now, take a step back. Ginger Baker was in Cream with Jack Bruce and Eric Clapton. And apparently, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker used to fight all the time. And when I say fight, I mean knock 7 lumps of shite out of each other pretty much on a constant basis. So that's why Cream pretty much broke up. They just couldn't deal with the differences anymore. And I think Eric was pretty much heavy on the drink and other substances at that time, so it wasn't working out. So for that reason, Eric Clapton was not too enthusiastic, shall we say, about Ginger Baker joining the band. He wanted it to be a more chilled out kind of vibe. But anyway, they went ahead, they recorded some stuff, they put out an album, as far as I'm aware, and they went on a really successful tour, going around playing these more chilled out songs all over the world. They had a very famous gig in Hyde Park in 1969 in London, and I think that whole gig is on I think it's on YouTube, I think it's on Spotify as well as a live album. And it's more chilled out than a lot of not Cream stuff, a lot of Clapton stuff as well. But these are 4 fantastic musicians. Now, I'm not going to say at their prime, but definitely, you know, performing really, really well. Blind Faith is one of those bands that we'll never know how good they could have been, because they broke up shortly after that 1969 tour, maybe during the tour. But they, you know, they could have been a huge, huge band. They had all the ingredients. Every single member of the band was top quality musician. So you should check them out. You should check them out on Spotify or wherever you listen to your music. And the word supergroup does get put onto a lot of bands kind of loosely. And I would argue that these next 2 bands, even though I love them and think that they're great, that they're called a supergroup when maybe they shouldn't be. But they're still cool, so let's talk about them. The first one is Velvet Revolver, and you probably know Velvet Revolver if you're a big rock fan like I am. The members of the band are Dave Kushner, who was in Wasted Youth, also played with Dave Navarro. You have some dude called Slash, who was in a band called Guns N' Roses, Duff McKagan again, and Matt Sorum again, so those 2 make it onto the list twice. And then also, of course, Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots was the singer, and what a singer, what a frontman he was back in the day. This group came together because the 4 guys, except for Scott, got together. They were, you know, putting together the project, and it was supposed to be this band. You know, these guys were setting up a band and they were searching for a singer. And back in the day, I think it was around 2000, 2001, there was a whole thing about them searching for the right singer. They apparently auditioned every singer who was willing to come in and audition for them. There was talk that Chris Cornell had auditioned. There was talk that Steven Tyler had auditioned. There was, you know, all this talk that all these different people had auditioned to be in this band, which other people called Guns N' Roses 2.0, which was not a million miles off the mark, to be honest. But there was still something missing. There was even, I think, a documentary done by VH1 about them searching for a singer and auditioning. There was a lot of talk about people auditioning for the band, and then apparently Scott came in just to hang out with them because he was friends, and then I think he was maybe working in the studio next door on a solo album or something, and they hit it off. And look, the thing about Velvet Revolver is it's a beautiful mistake in a lot of ways. It's one of those things you know is not going to work out long term, and they gave it their best. I think they lasted 5 to 7 years, really, 5 to 6 years even. Was lucky enough myself to see them play live twice. The first time they were touring their first record, Contraband, they were phenomenal, absolutely brilliant, top of their game. Slash and Duff were, you know, they looked happy to be back on top. A couple of other guys looked happy to be in a good, successful band, and Scott Weiland was killing it. And then I saw them in, I think, their second last show of an actual tour, which was in Dublin. I think they played like 2 nights later in Liverpool, and that was the last time Velvet Revolver played on tour. Songs to check out, which are really great: Slither, Fall to Pieces, Loving the Alien, Illegal Eye Song, stuff like that. You know, I mean, they've got 2 really, really solid albums in my opinion. Libertad is the second album. It's not as good as Contraband, which was the first one, but it has some great tunes on it, and I really like the cover that they have on that of an ELO song as well. So, you know, you should check them out. I think they're a great band, and they're always on my playlists. So that's Velvet Revolver. And funny enough, the final band I'm going to talk to you about is not really a supergroup at all. In fact, it's completely different, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. So we talked about Chris Cornell possibly auditioning for Velvet Revolver. Well, when that didn't happen, when he didn't get into Velvet Revolver for whatever reason, I think it was just that Scott was put in there instead. You know, Chris Cornell was available for a project because Soundgarden were not doing anything anymore, and he had a lot of time on his hands. So what do you do when you've got a lot of time on your hands? Well, there was also rumors that Zach was leaving Rage Against the Machine, so why not just take over singing for Rage Against the Machine? Well, that kind of happened, but they didn't call it Rage Against the Machine, they called it Audioslave. And Audioslave produced, I think, am I right, 3 albums? And each one of them was really cool. I had the fortune to see Audioslave live at a festival once upon a time, can't remember the year, but phenomenal. Chris Cornell was one of the greatest singers and frontmen rock has ever seen, you know, and he's deeply missed in the rock community, I know. It's still hard to believe that Chris Cornell is not with us anymore, because he was so young when he died in 2017. But he has left a legacy of amazing music behind him, and I think as fans of music we all need to just embrace that and enjoy that. Audioslave, just in case you don't know, so it's Tim Comerford, Brad Wilk and Tom Morello, who are the Rage Against the Machine members. And then those are the 3 Rage Against the Machine members, aside from the singer Zach De La Rocha. And he left, sort of was leaving the band, or was kicked out. I don't even know the full story there because I'm not a huge Rage Against the Machine fan, but they were like, you know, the rumor was, I remember the rumor that Chris Cornell was joining Rage Against the Machine, and what it actually was they were forming a new band, which, I mean, technically that becomes a supergroup. And they formed this, and I remember hearing Cochise, the first single from the Audioslave self-titled album, for the first time. Again, it was around 2002, maybe 2003, and just blew us all away back then. You know, it was really phenomenal, and that first album is full of amazing, great songs. So, you know, look, obviously respect to Scott Weiland and Chris Cornell, both sadly not with us anymore, both phenomenal singers and frontmen, and on their day live were captivating and brilliant, and I feel very fortunate to have witnessed their live performances when I got the chance to. Alright guys, so that's my list of supergroups. Some of them you've probably heard of, some of them you might not have. You should definitely check them all out one way or the other, and hopefully you'll leave me a comment telling me who your favorite supergroup is, other ones you could recommend. Obviously there are many more supergroups that I would have mentioned, but I only had a little bit of time to put together a video, so this is what I came up with. Hopefully you like it, and we'll have a chat about it. Anyway, great to see you. Thanks very much for stopping by. If you could subscribe to the channel and hit like on the video, that'll help other people see the content, and I'll see you again soon for the next one. Take care.